Welcome to the Bothell City Council meeting of September 17th, 2019. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All council members are here except Councilmember Agnew, who's absent and excused, as well as the Deputy Mayor. She's absent and excused. Meeting agenda approval. I need to pull for the Public Works Department AB 19-149 from consent. Is there any changes, other changes? Seeing none. Public engagement opportunities. The pop-up dog park at Park of Bothell Landing has been extended through Tuesday, October 15th. Fall Natural Yard Care Workshop, September 18th, 25th, and 28th at the Bothell Operations Center. Topics include yard design, native plant selection, pest control, plant maintenance, and do-it-yourself rain barrel building sessions. The last is one-on-one computer help for adults, Tuesday, September 24th from 2 p.m. or at 2 p.m. at the Bothell Library. And next on the agenda is the special presentation. Is King County here? King County's not here. They get skipped. Okay, so we'll do the proclamation. I'll come down to the podium. Okay, this proclamation is for National Pollution Prevention Week, whereas the United States Environmental Protection Agency acknowledges National Pollution Prevention Week in honor of the United States Congress passing the Pollution Prevention Act in 1990. And whereas the Pollution Prevention Act encourages pollution prevention by reducing or eliminating waste at the source, by modifying production processes, promoting the use of non-toxic or less toxic substances, implementing conservation techniques, and reusing materials rather than adding them to the waste stream. And whereas the City Council's environmental goal is to protect the natural environment through integrated natural resources management, and whereas the City of Bothell implements programs that aim to reduce and prevent pollution prevention generation by businesses, residents, and municipal operations by partnering with the community to protect our environment, including our wetlands, streams, lakes, and rivers. We have a lake. Oh, I guess Lake Pleasant. Okay. Now, therefore, I, Andrew Rayum, Mayor of Bothell, do hereby proclaim the week of September 16th through the 22nd, 2019 as National Pollution Prevention Week in the city of Bothell, Washington, and call upon all citizens to protect natural resources by reducing and eliminating sources of pollution.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to say anything?
I'm Christy Cox with Surface Water. I just wanted to thank council and staff and the community for their continued support of Pollution Prevention Week. This is the 29th year that we, that the nation is celebrating this, so it means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. And King County's still not here, right? Tisk. Okay, so moving on to the city manager, council committee reports. You have one, I can tell. Go for it.
I'd just like to take the opportunity to introduce one of our new executive leadership team members. Becky Range is our assistant to the city manager. She's back in the back row, and she joined us this week. And she comes to us from the city of Kenmore with a really strong background in communications and community engagement. And if the council recalls, we had a communications officer prior, and when we had the opportunity to relook at that position, we created this assistant to position that's really focused on two-way communication and engagement with our community. So I'd like to introduce Becky and have her say a few words.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to join the Bothell family. I am excited to support staff, but more importantly, I'm ready to serve the Bothell community. Thank you.
And she's from Texas.
I have no idea what's happening to the fourth floor.
Yeah, I know Texas is taking over the fourth floor. No more no Longhorn stuff or Cowboy stuff.
Or the Dallas Cowboys, please.
Yeah. That would be bad. Okay, council committee reports. Anybody have one? Councilmember Zorns?
This is real brief. This is from LTAC. We met after a summer break. There's something that's going to be coming before City Council. Staff is working on an interlocal agreement with Snohomish County for taxes and how they're using the, phrasing them and what they're dedicated for, TPA versus excise, and how big of a chunk Bothell can get. So that will be coming before us. And then this is just a community service notice basically for from LTAC. I think a lot of council is aware of two things. One is holiday lights are going to go up about Thanksgiving and stay through most of January. And then Street Sense, our social media for Begin at Bothell, is going to be in town later this week. I think people got an email on that. There will be drones and interviewers and filming for more of our media outreach. Oh, and then also our social media numbers are climbing, a lot of engagement, so that's proving really helpful. We're going to get more information on that later as well. Sum total.
All right, any other? Councilmember McAuliffe?
Thank you. And I attended the Park and Recreation Board meeting on September 12th, and it was a really great meeting. I want to say that the PROS plan has a large participation of people who are involved in taking this, answering the questionnaire. And, but I do want to encourage our young people to please take the questionnaire on the PROS plan, because only 4% of them did. And so we need our young people who live in Bothell and who want to be involved to participate. On October 10th from 6:30 to 8:30, there's a community workshop. Correct, Nick? All right. And then tomorrow night, September 18th, there's a fundraiser by the Friends. Is that right, Nick? Tell me.
Yes, the Friends of the North Creek Forest.
Yes, Friends of North Creek Forest. Sorry, I didn't complete my notes. But it's at Alexis from 5 to 7 if anybody wants to participate. And then there is one Bothell on September 28th. We'll have a walk on the back 9 from 10 to 11. So the park board is active and going. The pop-up park is, and the parade. I've heard a lot about the parade today. That was pretty exciting. Everybody loved it. So it's going to be extended to October 15th, and I think the people are very happy for that. So thank you all.
Any other council? Okay, Councilmember. Let's see. I want to say Liam. Councilmember Olson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I attended the Housing Affordability Regional Task Force meeting that we had. And so this was meeting 5, I believe, and they've been having breakout sessions where they're looking at, so this is for Snohomish County specifically. King County has Arch, or the similar group down there. And so Snohomish County has created this task force, and they have had breakout sessions, and our own Mr. Michael Catterman has participated and worked on pieces of the task force and the breakout sessions. And they had a little bit of a report out at this last one just as their progress, and it's scheduled to go until December with 3 more meetings, I believe. And this September 25th, they're going to have at the Snohomish County Tomorrow General Assembly, that'll be the keynote presentation for that meeting, and that's going to be up in Everett. And I know a couple other council members are going to be joining me at that as well, and there will be the formal presentation of how the Heart Committee has progressed so far. And so the outcome at the end of this is to have recommendations for how the county can work collaboratively together to just perform better for affordable housing in Snohomish County.
Is there any other council reports? None? Okay. So the council's okay. I need to back the truck up because King County is here now. Are you guys ready for King County's presentation? Everybody okay with going out of order? Okay. So welcome, King County. Megan Smith and Rachel Bramba. Did I do that? Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, slide advance on here. Okay. All right, so thank you for having us here this evening. I'm Megan Smith. I'm the Director of Climate and Energy Initiatives for King County. I work out of the County Executive's Office, and I'm joined by my colleague, Rachel Brumbaugh, who is our Energy Partnerships and Policy Specialist. And I apologize for being late. We were trying to get here as quickly as possible and got caught up in traffic, as I'm sure many people do, so I apologize for that. We are here tonight to talk a little bit about the King County Cities Climate Collaboration. And before we get into the Climate Collaborative and what it is and some of the history and how to join and what's involved, we did want to say a little bit about climate impacts and kind of why act on climate, and the role that local governments can have. So when we look back, last few summers, last few winters, we kind of think about it as the dress rehearsal for impacts to come. When you look at flooding, we saw back in January of 2015, record low snowpack back then, and the impacts that has on things like water supplies, record high temperatures. I think we've all experienced things like wildfire smoke and heat waves that happen, something I grew up here, the Pacific Northwest, never really expected to see. And we see that play out in things like flooding, landslides, air quality, things that local governments really have to deal with through their services. And those have impacts on our health and our economy as well. When you start thinking about things like more intense rainfall events in the wintertime, and local governments like City of Bothell or King County, the things we need to do to manage stormwater, we start looking at, do we need to upsize facilities and start making more costly investments there? When we look out over history and all the work that local governments and the county and tribes have done to recover salmon, I think about the Sammamish River here and all the great cooperative work at a watershed scale, some of those things get put into jeopardy as we see warmer stream temperatures. So I think about the Sammamish right here in your front yard when you go out there in the summer, that very slow moving shallow water, we see warmer temperatures and kind of getting to the point where salmon don't want to swim upstream into those warmer waters. When we look really big picture across our community as a whole, across King County, so everything in the geography of King County, all 39 cities, the county as a whole, a lot of people ask, like, how are we doing on greenhouse gas emissions? And this is kind of a good news, bad news story. Big picture, what we're seeing is a decoupling of trend in population growth from our emissions. So we've seen 16% population growth since 2008 over about the last decades. In that time, community scale emissions, so everywhere across the county in this geography, have leveled off or dropped a little bit. So the good news is we see that decoupling. The bad news is that trajectory of greenhouse gas emissions should not be kind of level, it should be precipitously dropping. Our goal is to get to an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. So we've got a lot of work to do. So why does city action matter? Especially some small to moderate sized cities will say, are we really going to have a lot of impact if we act on climate change? And when we really look across the county, cities under 100,000 are almost half of our population in King County. By design, through the Growth Management Act and through comprehensive planning, 98% of new growth in King County is happening in cities or designated urban areas in urban and incorporated King County. We are seeing a growing constituent interest in climate issues. A lot of folks coming to council meetings, contacting us directly saying, what are you doing on this issue? Can you move faster? Is there more you can do? Is there more we can do together? And then the other thing is we know that some of our climate actions, like improving energy efficiency in buildings, like county buildings, can actually save us a lot of money. I'll give you an example of a facility, a parks facility out in Marymore Park. It's our first certified net zero energy building. So it's a parks maintenance facility. They do, basic work of parks maintenance, metal fabrication, maintaining vehicles, those kind of things out in Marymore Park. We did a really deep energy efficiency retrofit, put solar on that building. Now we don't have an electricity bill there anymore. So that project will pay off relatively quickly, and those are the kinds of things we can do as a local government to both reduce our emissions, but also save some energy and save some money. And the other reason we want to act as local governments is we really have a lot of influence and impact. So when you think about the things that counties and cities control, includes things like local land use and building codes, including things like green building, local construction and operation of our own buildings and the kind of standards we choose to apply to ourselves, whether we purchase electric vehicles in our fleets, what kind of goods and services we buy. We also engage in regional planning that shapes where and how we develop. So when you think about things like emissions from transportation, I always say our success or failure over the coming decades is going to be dependent on where and how we develop and how we serve that development with transportation. And then we can get involved in federal and state policy. So you think about something like federal fuel economy standards. We're really counting on those standards to meet our climate goals. There is the chance that they will be rolled back or undone. At the state level, state policies about energy supplies are absolutely essential to us meeting our climate goals, and Rachel will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So actually, before I go to that slide, I just want to say one last thing about kind of the impact of local governments. The good news is when you start thinking about the actions that we need to take as local governments, so that is things like investing in transit, investing in regional trails like you have here running through your community, making investments to reduce our use of energy, potentially installing solar energy, getting to cleaner electricity supplies that improve our air quality. Those are all things that contribute to our quality of life here. When we were pulling into Bothell, I mean, I look at the big forested areas you have here, things like maintaining forest health, or improving forest health, planting trees. Those are good for capturing greenhouse gas emissions, and they're also good for helping our systems just be more resilient, helping reduce stream temperatures. As mentioned, we expect streams to get warmer. That's a great thing to do. Open space conservation, like you've done at Wayne Golf Course. So a lot of the actions that we need to take as local governments are things that are also good for quality of life, and we always want to kind of keep that connection together. So with that, I want to hand it off to Rachel, and she will get into, as local governments work, how we can have more impact when we work together through groups like King County Cities Climate Collaboration.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Rachel Brumbaugh. I'll talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the King County Cities Climate Collaboration, and happy to answer any questions you have. So what is it? It is a voluntary but formal collaboration of local governments. I'll go over the map in just a second. It's regulated. It's an interlocal agreement that sets pretty high level goals and an agreement to cooperate and work together to reduce carbon emissions 80% by 2050, 50% by 2030. And the areas of collaboration are looking to for supportive state policies, because as local governments we can do a lot of things but we can't do all of it ourselves. Collaborating on consistent building codes, sharing best ideas, and working with the public that we all share to a certain extent. So who is in the K4C? So we've grown a lot in the past couple years, actually. We've added Kent down in South King County, and your neighbor Kenmore, and your other neighbor Lake Forest Park fairly recently. Right now it's 16 cities, the Port of Seattle, and the county. And we represent, I think it's a little over 1.6 million people, so about 80% of the county's population. So when and how did this come about? So it came around in 2012 when Executive Constantine recognized the need to work collaboratively instead of everyone working separately, and to try to get everyone to work together on these things. But that agreement to partner on solutions and funding and resources, and if you recall, there's a couple years ago there were a lot more grants flowing through the remnants of the American Reinvestment Recovery Act. Those have dried up quite a bit, but there's still a lot of state grants that we can coordinate on. In 2014, there was the adoption of shared climate goals, and that was actually something through the Growth Management Planning Council of the county and all 39 cities formalized the emission reductions of 50% by 2030 and 80% by 2050 versus the 2007 baseline. So that's something we all share, and that's our goal and what all of our actions work towards. And then in 2015, we developed the joint commitments, and this is an optional document that most cities have signed on to, and it really outlines in more detail some of the individual targets underneath the carbon emissions goals and different policy and programmatic pathways in which to pursue them. And some of these are in land use and transportation to support trails and transit, building energy, electricity supply, and forestry and agriculture. Also in there is to work to improve our own operations in each city. So that's an optional. Most have signed on to it. We're actually looking to update these right now. We're working on it because the regulatory landscape has changed quite a bit. Technologies have changed, and some of the science and the inventories of emissions that we have told us we need to work on some different things a little bit harder. So how do you join the K4C? It is, as I mentioned, you sign on through the interlocal agreement, which I can send a copy. I don't think that I included that in the materials, but again, a broad commitment to collaboration and goals. It defines an annual financial contribution based on population, and I'll go into that in a minute. Then, if you wish to look at the stronger optional pledge for joint commitments, and as I said, we're working on that, so that might be something, if you were to really think about this, you want to look at it and perhaps even have a voice in. I'd be happy to share and go over with your staff. Staff does meet about 8 to 10 times a year. That's about an hour and a half meeting where we get together and share best practices, share idea, plan for work sessions, and do outreach or do updates on programs and projects that we're working on. So for a lot of cities, so I know I'm really lucky at the county. We are able to fund positions, a couple positions, mine included, that works on climate and energy all the time. But for a lot of our partner cities, the person that is the representative to the K4C is also a planner, or is also a communication specialist, or is also, we have some people that work on water. So this is something that they've been able to fold into their portfolio. So we really bring those resources to the city, to the specific cities and partners that maybe don't have those resources, and bring that to them so that they can really kind of expand the work that they're doing. The other time commitment that we ask is we have an elected official work session. Executive Constantine convenes it. It's held once or twice a year. We've been on a 2 times a year cadence lately. And we actually invite all elected officials within the county. You don't have to be a member to attend this meeting. And it's typically thematic. We go over a couple different things. In October of last year, we looked at what was really important, what were the priorities that the elected officials set. In June this year, frankly, we celebrated a lot of the legislative successes that we had at the state level. So it's a great event, and our next one is October 23rd. So mark that on your calendars if you continue to be interested. We'd love to have you show up for that. Let's talk about this success story. This is a great example of the K4C working together. So you can see in the picture there at our Capitol, we have Mercer Island Councilmember Bruce Bassett, we have Burien Councilmember Nancy Tosta, we have Megan Smith, and we have Snoqualmie Mayor Matt Larson. And they are down there in what looks like a really beautiful February day, testifying in front of the legislature on one of the many bills that we actively worked to support in this past session that aligned with our K4C goals. So one of the things that we did collectively was really look at the bills, analyze them, and help prepare the elected officials who were very excited to go testify and support the Clean Electricity Bill, Energy Efficiency Bill, Transportation Electrification Bill, hydrofluorocarbons bill. So that was a really, not that we moved the needle just ourselves, but it was really influential and really impactful to have local elected leaders going down to Olympia and saying, this is important to my community. This helps the health of my community. So that was a really great story for this year. Another success story is the Green Direct program that Puget Sound Energy offers. For years, the county and cities have been asking PSE for more renewable electricity options. And they said, oh, well, we can't do that because they're a state construct. And we said, let's find a way. So PSE came up with a really innovative solution, which was a separate tariff, a separate program that was available to very large businesses and to local governments that when it's up and running, will purchase electricity from a new wind farm in Southwest Washington and a solar farm near Richland, actually, and that will be additive to the system, and it will offset our traditional use. It will be the equivalent of we're buying the wind and solar power, and we get the environmental attributes for it. So that's something that's a really great story. The even better part of the story is that it looks like the renewable electricity option is going to be cheaper than the conventional fuel mix that they use. So we will be saving, assuming our estimates are correct over a 12-year period, we'll be saving several $1 million on our portfolio electricity bill. So that's a good story. Then the other success stories, we worked together on some of the technical analysis to really understand what's creating emissions and what can we do in order to have the most effective pathway to reduce those emissions. So that's the K4C. Let me talk about the financial commitment. I'll have to admit, in this document earlier this afternoon when we were reviewing it, I realized there's actually an error for Bothell. I don't believe your population was 17,090 people in 2010. I believe it was more like 35,000. So I think all that would do would pop you up to an annual financial commitment of $1,200. So that's just once a year dues, and then when we vote on budget, it has to be, I believe, 3/4 approval. So it's very collaborative on how we determine how the funds are spent for the organization. And then, just lastly, I think I've mentioned this, but the benefits of the K4C are just to share the learning and tools, respond to our constituents, and ensure that our individual voices have greater influence and regional impact, and really work together and make sure we're working regionally to advocate for solutions that work for all of us. This is just a picture of our last elected official work session with most of the folks were there. I think a couple folks have left by then. And then again, I think, we just talked about why take action. We're seeing some of these changes, but we have the ability to mitigate a fair amount of it, and to make changes that not only reduce carbon emissions, but really improve the quality of life for our residents. Let me just talk next. We'll be working on our emissions inventory and those pathways. That really fits in exactly with our updating of our joint commitments, which is what I mentioned we're working on to refine and make sure that we're reflecting current regulatory environment and technology and where we are. And then the last thing that really is a big part of what we're doing is an update of the county's strategic climate action plan. We have a lot of public engagement opportunities and specific stakeholder opportunities. We're working on that through the end of the year, and then looking to transmit to the King County Council by June 2020. This is something folks are always asking, what could we do? There's local city action, which is request an energy efficiency walkthrough with PSE. And then if you have something that you could invest in, you could apply for a loan from King County for your project. We can lend to cities within the county at very low rates for renewable and energy efficiency. Develop green building codes and a climate plan. We have lots of partners who have really taken a lead on that. Learn about, help publicize, and apply for state grants and incentives for EVs. There's one out now for Department of Ecology has a grant out now from the Volkswagen mitigation funds for workplace charging. So I'd be happy to pass on information about that if you're interested. State policy, participate in utility planning processes. Those are always going on. And then there's opportunities in the near future to advocate for stronger federal and state building codes, which helps with that efficiency component. Regional planning, I think as Megan mentioned some of these things, weighing in on Vision 2050 to support transit-focused growth. There's also the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency is releasing its clean fuel standard draft for public comment on October 7th. So that's a really interesting opportunity to weigh in. And then lastly, as I mentioned, weighing in on some of King County's public workshops, are both with the Strategic Climate Action Plan, but then on our Metro Mobility Framework, which seeks to really expand transit access throughout the region. So here's some contact information up there. That's my number. And then the contact information for Matt Kuharek and Nicole Sanders, who are really the co-leads of the K4C. And so any of us would be able to answer questions if you had later. But I'm happy to answer questions now if you have any.
All right, thanks for your presentation. Is there any questions? They're shocked. No? Thorough presentation? We're good?
No, I'll just say I kept writing a few questions down, and then you just kept nailing and picking them off as you're going through. So I was like, great presentation, very thorough, a lot of information in there. So thank you for coming out.
You're quite welcome. And if you have questions later, you can contact me directly or have your staff contact, and we'd be happy to follow up. And I'd be happy to follow up with some of the materials that I mentioned also if you'd like that.
Councilmember Zorns.
Quick clarifying, what did you say it would cost the city to join in annual dues?
$1,200.
Okay, thank you.
We good over here? Any questions? None? Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us.
No problem. All right, so we are on to visitor comment. So, each person addressing the council will give his or her name in an audible tone of voice for the record, and unless the council grants further time, shall limit the address to 3 minutes. No person other than the council and the person having the floor will be permitted to enter into any discussion either directly or through a member of the council without the permission of the mayor. And I had the city manager and I have talked recently, and we're gonna try something a little different. We're not gonna have the council still address people that give public comment, but we are gonna have staff try to answer questions on the fly. So, so here we go. The first sign-up sheet and only sign-up sheet is Julie Morin.
Thank you. My name's Julie Morin, and I recently moved to Bothell. I live in the 19,000 block of Bothell Way, and I live in Stonebrook condominiums. And my concern is that for pedestrians such as myself and other people that live up there, walking south on the west side of the road, which is where the condominiums are, it's not safe. There's about 50 yards of sidewalk that's missing. There's sidewalk right outside our drive, but then it immediately stops. You've got kind of a perilous walk, very close to the white line. You have cars coming very fast. We would like to walk south to the QFC. We would like to walk into town. And so I'm wondering if the City Council could consider putting a sidewalk in there or putting some kind of guard and making that that portion of Bothell Way safe for pedestrians.
City manager, you got it. There you go. All right, here we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we have a project that we are going to be starting design on, I believe next year, to widen and add pedestrian facilities to Bothell Way in this area. We have known that this is an issue that probably will be constructed probably in the neighborhood of 2024. So it will be a while, but it's on our radar.
All right, that's the only sign-up sheet I have. Is there anybody else that wants to provide public comment? Now, forever hold your peace. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. I have pulled one item. Is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
I move to approve the remaining consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Agnew. Why do I not want to call you your name? Moved by Councilmember Olson, second by Councilmember McAuliffe. Any discussion on the motion? See none, please vote. Passes unanimously with the Deputy Mayor and Councilmember Agnew absent and excused. So I pulled AB 19-149, award of construction contract for Juanita Way Northeast Bridge over Sammamish River Seismic Retrofit Project. Public Works asked us to have a different recommended action than that was presented in our packet. So I can't make a motion. So if somebody, does everybody have a copy of this? Has everybody had a chance to look at it? Well, I guess we have somebody read it to us. All right. You look like you're ready. You want to do it, Councilmember McNeil?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I move that the recommended action authorizes the city manager to enter into construction contract with Combined Construction Inc. in the amount of $656,500 and in substantially the same form as presented, and the contingent upon the anticipated WashDOT concurrence for construction of the Juanita Way Northeast Bridge over the Sammamish River Seismic Retrofit Project.
I'll second it. So I'm not going to read that again. Does everybody understand what we're voting on? Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Oh, it's moved by Councilor McNeil, seconded by myself, the mayor. No discussion? Go ahead, place your vote. Passes unanimously with Councilor Agnew and Deputy Mayor absent and excused. Moving right along to the AB 19-152 quarterly financial and levy update, second quarter 2019. And we have, let's see, Mr. Bothell.
Good evening. So we've got your second quarter updates for Safe and Secure Bothell, Safe Streets and Sidewalks, and the second quarter financial report. And Carly is going to start us off with Safe and Secure Bothell update.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of the council. My name is Carly Jorger, and I'm the Public Safety Levy Coordinator. I'm here to bring you your safe and secure updates for the second quarter of 2019. During this time period, the city hired 5 of the 27 allotted levy positions. These include 3 police officers, 1 probation lead for the court, and 1 application analyst for your information services department. And as of the second quarter, this brings our levy hiring count to a total of 11 positions out of the 27. And as you'll recall from the last time I brought the Safe and Secure updates to you on July 2nd, the levy team created a service delivery timeline that shows the major milestones included in the levy package. And as of the end of the second quarter, we're still on track to hit all of our milestones. Much of the quarter 2 updates for the fire station replacement project was presented to you by our construction project manager, OAC Services, on July 2nd, but I'll just quick give you a summary of one of the key milestones we hit in quarter 2. The bond team and the construction project manager selected a design construction procurement method called Progressive Design Build. This method appealed to the team because of the nature of this project, where instead of being one project, it's more of like 4. There's 2 temporary facilities and then the 2 permanent facilities. Under a traditional design bid build method, this would have resulted in managing 8 contracts, 4 with the architect and 4 with a contractor. The benefit of Progressive Design Build is that it allows the city to wrap these 4 projects up into one and enter into one agreement with a contractor who has teamed up with an architect. This design build team functions as a unit throughout the selection process and through the remainder of the 4 projects. The few other benefits of progressive design build include that the city can select this design build team, and the design build team can select their subcontractors based on qualifications and cost, not just the lowest bidder. Construction often overlaps with design, which may increase the overall delivery speed for the projects. And lastly, there is increased cost certainty as the overall price for the project is negotiated between the city and the design build team. Use of this method requires approval from a project review committee from the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services, which was granted at the end of June. And when you receive your Q3 updates, you'll see that the team issued a request for qualifications for the design build team, identified finalists to receive a request for proposals, scored the proposals, and selected a team, and then the contract will be brought forward for your consideration in November. So all in all, the progress on both of the Safe and Secure programs is moving along as expected. And I'm here, as well as the Levy and Bond teams, to answer any questions that you have before passing it back to Finance Director.
Any questions on the levies or levy implementation? They're enamored. Good job.
All right, thank you.
All right, so I've got your update for safe streets and sidewalks. I'm just going to start by describing some of the work that was done in the second quarter. All right, so the first operations crews worked on repairing sidewalks in school zones. There was 3 areas where they focused. That was Shelton View, West Hill Elementary, and Canyon Park Middle School. And the work involved repairing and replacing sidewalk panels in those areas. Operations also performed work for vegetation management, sign maintenance, striping and pavement marking, and curb repair. Pavement preservation work included completing the design of the overlay of Woodinville Drive from Interstate 405 to the eastern city limits. And I've included on this slide some of the metrics, year-to-date metrics. So the sidewalk repair has been over 1,100 linear feet. They've done over 15,000 square feet of asphalt repair and repaired 573 potholes just as of June 30th. Okay, so the second area where they focused was on safe school walk route projects. The first one was serves Bothell High School, and it was the design of non-motorized improvements on Northeast 188th, and the design was completed in the second quarter. And that project will create a safe walk route from Bothell High School down to Popkini Field, so down the hill. Second, the design of the non-motorized improvements at 7th Avenue Southeast and 88th Avenue Northeast was completed, so another design project. And this project will increase the walkability around West Hill Elementary and connect more of that area to safe walk routes to Bothell High School. And third, the construction for non-motorized improvements near Canyon Park Middle School was awarded in April, and construction started in the second quarter with the undergrounding of utilities. And finally, 27 new ADA compliant curb ramps were also constructed around the city in the second quarter. And just a quick note about the communications. The 2018 annual report for the Safe Streets and Sidewalks Levy was published in the second quarter. That's available on the website, and it was also included in the Bothell Bridge. And Safe Streets and Sidewalks website was also updated with project information. So if there's any questions on Safe Streets and Sidewalks.
Councilmember McAuliffe.
Thank you. Well, I do have a question, and that is, when you talk about the repair of sidewalks, going to West Hill on, let's see, it's 180th, right? Correct? Get that right? 180th? Here we go. I missed it. Crews replaced damaged sidewalk panels on West Hill. I walk that every day, and there's a lot of damage still on the sidewalks from 88th to West Hill. And so I'm just wondering what was repaired, what area?
So I'll take over for the finance director at the moment. I'm not absolutely certain the specifics. We typically focus directly on between the nearest neighborhoods to the school itself, but I can definitely make a note of that. So you said between 88th and West Hill on 180th?
Between 180th and West Hill. and it'd be on 88th Avenue Northeast. And there's quite a bit of damage to a sidewalk. First of all, probably about, I want to say 192nd, there's no sidewalk. So it's basically gone. And then right beyond that, it goes up into a form like this.
So that may not be directly in that safe school walk route zone, but we'll take a look at it.
Okay, yeah, I walk it every day, so I'm just kind of used to it. And I know it needs repair, but maybe it's not in the plan. That would be it. And then I guess the other one is I just wanted to say, I know it hasn't got a lot to do, but it has a lot to do with safe streets and sidewalks, is the speed limit sign that is on 180th, right before you get to West Hill. I mean, sorry, it's on 88th before you get to West Hill. Makes a huge difference in the traffic flow because that's kind of always been referred to as the speedway, and now it looks like the mileage sign does help a lot with that. So I appreciate that.
Okay, so we'll jump into the second quarter financial report. This is going to sound a lot like the first quarter financial report. A lot of the trends that we identified in the first quarter are just continuing into the second quarter. The first one being sales taxes underperforming. Currently, we're about 3% below budget on sales tax collections. There is a seasonality to sales tax, so it could pick back up. We have a construction season and we have fourth quarter. Both of those could contribute positively in the third and fourth quarter of this year, but right now we're about 3% behind where we should be. If that trend were to continue through the rest of the biennium, we'd be result in about $1 million shortfall to the general fund. So it's concerning but not alarming. We'll keep an eye on it, and definitely something we need to be thinking about as we go into the 21-22 budget development. Another one is utility taxes is underperforming. This is kind of a new one. It's really being dragged down by telephone utility taxes, which have been on a steady decline. They continue to decline, and so we're falling a little bit behind in utility tax collections. There is also a seasonality to utility tax, so it's another one that's kind of a wait and see, and we'll see how that one shapes up. A lot of factors play into utility tax collections that we don't have any control over. So we'll continue to bring you updates on that, just something we're watching. Thought we'd bring it to your attention. There is a new unbudgeted revenue, which is kind of exciting because these are kind of rare. The fire department applied to participate in a program that the state launched for ground emergency medical transport, or GEMT. And what it is it funds a portion of the city's cost to transport folks that are on the state's Medicaid program. And so they applied to participate in that program, and they've started receiving reimbursements. They got their first reimbursement for fiscal year 2017, and it was over $650,000 of unbudgeted revenue to the general fund. So pretty outstanding. So that's helping us with some of the underperforming revenues that we have, the sales tax and the utility taxes. So we're looking pretty good on revenue. So general fund expenditures are under budget. That's a trend that started in the first quarter as well, so we're looking pretty good there. Departments are just exercising good budget discipline. We're a little over 1% under budget, so looking pretty good. And then we're 6 months into the year, so it's a good time to take a look at how revenues year to date are compared to expenditures year to date. And we're looking really good, better than budgeted. So we've got about a $67,000 operating deficit right now. Which relative to this, for the size of our general fund budget, that's a really small number. So that's a positive development. So that concludes the general fund, but we've got capital and other funds. In the first quarter, I told you that real estate excise tax, or REIT, was performing really well, and that trend has continued into the second quarter. We're about $600,000 ahead of where we should be year to date. But just like last time, I'll caution you that real estate excise tax is based on real estate transactions, and it's pretty volatile and seasonal as well. So we'll keep an eye on that one, but so far it's looking good. And utilities and capital are on track. Basically, those are items that are easier to budget because they're pretty predictable, and the results thus far in the year are consistent with budget. Just two other matters I wanted to bring to your attention. I mentioned last quarter that there was a lot of talk of a recession. There's even more talk of a recession now. There's a couple things that have happened. The interest rate environment's changed a little bit, and also there's some signs in the global economy that we are in fact heading towards a recession. So it's something I just wanted to remind you of. The timing of the recession, economists are kind of all over the place about that. Some are saying that we're already in a recession. We're just waiting for data to be published to prove that or to confirm that. Others are saying we're 18 months or 2 years away, but it's something that we're going to be continuing to talk about, and definitely something we'll be thoughtful about as we go into budget development for 21-22, which is only a few months away. The other thing I wanted to give you a heads up about is the budget, the biennial budget adjustment. So we adopt a 2-year budget, and so we're required by statute to bring, to consider a budget adjustment, to bring revenue numbers to you, let you know how things are stacking up relative to the amounts that we put in the budget, and then consider an adjustment if it's required. And so we've got that scheduled on the October 1st agenda. So 2 weeks from tonight, we will bring a little bit more data to you, and we will bring a recommendation regarding a mid-biennial budget adjustment. The primary basis for that adjustment or for that conversation will be this Q2 data, because it's the best data we have right now. But there's going to be 2 additional pieces of information that we'll bring forward that night. One is new construction values, or current new construction values for from the counties for the 2020 property tax levy. And the other is going to be July sales tax numbers. So we'll have a little bit more data, but the primary basis of that conversation will be this Q2 data. So that's the end of your report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor. On the sales tax and the utility tax, the numbers that are kind of falling off, trending off a little bit, what are those used for? And do you see a trend in the utility tax for the phone stuff continuing in a downward trend?
Okay, so those are both, sales tax and utility taxes are both just unrestricted general fund revenues, so they fund all kinds of city services. Just about every department in the city is funded with the general fund except for public works. So that's where the money goes. On the utility taxes, generally utility taxes are, they're based on the cost to the consumer, and those have been kind of flat. I mean, there's conservation, but there's also a lot of fixed costs associated with running a utility. So we see those, they generally increase with inflation. On telephone utility, it's a usage problem. People are moving away from telephones to communicating, over data lines, and we can't tax data lines because of the Internet Tax Freedom Act. So it's a revenue source that's kind of drying up a little bit. I mean, it's always going to be around because there's always going to be some telephone, but it's just been on a steady decline, and I think that's likely to continue for a while. Eventually we'll hit a bottom, I guess, but.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then on the REIT construction taxes, is that typical? It sounds like we're kind of in that 10-year cycle right now. If I remember the last 10 years, it was kind of the same. It was 2008, 2009. We're kind of hitting that same spot. Is that kind of the same cycle that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, I think that's right. There's a number of forces in the kind of the larger economy that affect housing, and obviously when housing's doing well, REIT does well. So I think that's exactly where we're at. And
then we do our biennial budget. Is that kind of on an off 2-year cycle off of that, or do you see that trending in line with it?
That's going to be kind of a wait and see. We'll continue to watch all the indicators and see kind of where we think things are going. But we went into the last recession. Obviously, housing was an enormous part of that. So it's going to be really hard to predict what's going to happen in this upcoming, or what could be the upcoming recession.
So it sounds like you're being proactive in planning for that stuff now.
Yeah.
Before we get to our budget cycle.
Yeah, we want to be well informed because we're going to be looking at the budget in just a few months. And so, yeah, we're trying to stay on top of all that stuff.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Your presentations are always good. Well, it's the second one, right? So I can't get too excited. The mid-biennial budget adjustment, I'm sure that'll be a decrease in our overall budget, right? Anyways, all right, thank you. Let's see, I think we're done. Oh wait, no, council conversations. Does anybody want to converse as a council? Awesome. Oh, you do. All right. Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to bring up, there's a levy out right now for North Shore Parks and Rec Service and we've talked about that up here for our senior center. I don't know if everybody's aware, but I wanted to bring to your attention that the Redmond Senior Center, I was informed today, that the Redmond Senior Center has actually closed for structural damages to the facility. So that facility is closed, and they're going to be sending the services out to other senior centers around the area. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware that that has taken place. So anything we can do to just talk about the need for senior support within our communities would be good. I also attended an event in Kenmore on cities, strong cities, and one of the interesting slides, a couple interesting slides that showed up there were about development and where development should take place within communities. And it's interesting to learn how when you focus your attention in core areas where your highest revenue sources can come from, it is a large economic driver for your community. And so I found it very interesting, the comment that the narrator said was, no neighborhood should experience radical change, but no neighborhood should be exempt from change. And I found that very, very interesting, that we shouldn't experience a crazy change, but we should all experience some form of change. So I thought it was a very interesting conversation. Councilmember Zorns was there. It was good to see her there as well. Another thing that we learned about was innovation that happens from the top down tends to be orderly but dumb, as he put it. And bottom up tends to be chaotic but very smart. So some interesting things, learning as a council person, economic development, things like that within our city and what we can do to be better council people. Always open to learning more and more things about that. So thank you.
Can I?
Two things, didn't you? Oh, no, you did. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Can I just add to that, because that was interesting, and I found myself a lot of what he said resonated with me, but I also thought a couple of his points were depended on the situation of whether or not that was a good fix or not. But I thought he brought a really good point. I love that quote, so thank you for remembering that. I also appreciated he made a distinction between entrepreneurs and investors. And as a community, if you can support entrepreneurs, like Kenmore's got somebody help me with the word retrieval, where you can just kind of incubate entrepreneurs, that, at some point it would be lovely for Bothell to find ways that they could incubate entrepreneurs that are part of Bothell and in Bothell.
Great comments, and I think our city should be very proud of what we've done to help support our newest member up that was at Country Village, and now Carolina Smoke is reopened. So hats off to everybody at the city who worked so hard to make that happen. That is a testament to what we can do when we support our businesses within our community.
Thank you. And I would like to talk a little bit about our summer events through the City of Bothell's Parks and Recreation, and give you a little idea of how our outreach went. So our total reach for our summer events was 16,000 people, and the 4th of July attendance was 7,500, with 88 people for parade entries. And our children's parade was 1,000 children. So that's pretty exciting to see that outreach to our community and have people have something that they really care about. Music in the Park, total attendance for the 2019 summer session was 6,900, an average weekly attendance of 863, the biggest show being ABBA Fab at 1,500 and Harmonious Funk at 1,100. Just Kidding Around, which is at the Bothell Landing, had a total attendance of 1,900, average weekly attendance of 272, and the biggest show was Casper Baby Pants at 500. Blythe Park Family Campout, the attendance was 40 families and 163 people. So I do want to compliment our Parks and Rec people who are really doing a lot to include our community in all of their events that they have. So thank you all.
Are we done conversing? We ready to go to executive session? Okay. So we're going to go to closed session for labor negotiations pursuant to RCW 4230-110-4A. And Mr. Byrne, how long do you think we'll be in closed session?
About 30 minutes?
So we'll be in closed session until 7:30 and we'll adjourn after that, or do we expect to have action? We will adjourn after that at 7:30.